I woke up disoriented, my head pounding against the car window. The Montana sun blazed overhead as I realized we had stopped at a gas station. My family had been giving me the cold shoulder this entire vacation. I rubbed my eyes and looked around. The car was gone. My stomach dropped as I checked my phone. One new message from my brother Jake. "Let us see if you can make it back on your own." Good luck, loser, I never came back. I will tell you the story of how I lost a family and found myself. If you are watching, let me know if you have ever felt betrayed by your own blood. Like and subscribe if you want to hear how I built a better life. Growing up in the Pearson household was like being the only cloud on a sunny day. My parents, Richard and Eleanor, built their fortune in real estate, living in a sprawling mansion in Connecticut that felt more like a museum than a home. Jake, my older brother, by 3 years, inherited our father's sharp business mind and domineering personality. My younger sister Sophia was the princess, granted every wish before the words left her mouth. Then there was me, Chad, the middle child, who never quite fit the Pearson mold. From my earliest memories, I was the family punchline. When I was 8, Jake convinced me to ride my bike down the marble staircase for his homemade stunt show. My broken arm became a joke at dinner parties for years. Remember when Chad thought he could fly, my father would chortle to business associates. By high school, the pattern was set. Jake excelled in business clubs and sports. Sophia dazzled in academics and social circles. I retreated into photography, finding solace behind the lens where I could observe life without being judged. My passion for photography became my greatest crime in their eyes. "Artists are just people too lazy for real work," my father would say whenever he caught me with my second-hand camera. My mother would sigh dramatically. Where did we go wrong with this one, as though my existence was a personal failure? Jake perfected the art of making me look foolish in front of others, setting up situations where I would inevitably embarrass myself. Sophia mostly ignored me, except when she needed someone to blame for her own mistakes. The trip to Montana was meant to celebrate my parents' 25th wedding anniversary, an obligatory family vacation none of us wanted, least of all me. I had just turned 23, living at home while taking community college photography classes my parents refused to pay for. The night before everything changed, we had dinner at an overpriced restaurant in Whitefish. The conversation inevitably turned to my future. "So Chad's still playing with your little camera," Jake smirked across his filet mignon. He was 26 and already an executive at our father's company. "I have an interview with a local studio next week," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "They liked my portfolio." My father snorted. "What is the salary?" "Minimum wage, plus free development of your vacation photos." Richard, my mother, feigned disapproval while barely containing her smile. "I could make good money as a wedding photographer," I insisted. "People pay thousands for quality photos of their special day." Sophia, 19 and home from her Ivy League summer program, rolled her eyes. "Nobody wants the weird, quiet guy taking pictures at their wedding, Chad. He would probably trip and ruin the cake," Jake added, causing my father to burst into laughter. "I just need a chance," I said, feeling my throat tighten. "Not everyone wants to sell houses or sit in an office." My father's face hardened. "Not everyone gets to live in my house for free while pursuing childish hobbies either. You have 2 months to get a real job or find another place to live." The rest of the meal passed in a blur. Later that night in our shared hotel suite, the ridicule continued. Jake found my camera and held it hostage, taking mocking self-portraits while making faces. "Look at me. I am an artist." So deep and misunderstood, my attempts to retrieve it only amused him more. "Give it back, Jake," I pleaded, reaching for my most prized possession. "Make me loser," he taunted, dangling it just out of reach. My parents watched from the couch, my mother half-heartedly telling Jake to stop, while my father chuckled at the boys being boys. Eventually, Jake tossed the camera onto the bed, bored with his game. I checked it for damage, relieved to find it intact, and retreated to the balcony where I stayed until everyone went to sleep. That night, I cried silently into my pillow, wondering how I could possibly survive 2 more months under my father's roof. The next morning, we stopped for gas about 4 hours into our drive home. I had fallen asleep in the back seat, exhausted from the emotional toll of the previous night. When I woke up alone, I initially thought they were all inside the convenience store. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Reality slowly dawned on me as I walked around the station calling their names. They were gone. Jake's message arrived with a ping. "Let us see if you can make it back on your own. Good luck, loser," followed by a series of laughing emojis. I stood there stunned as passing cars kicked up dust around me. I was stranded at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, Montana, over 2,000 miles from home, with nothing but my phone camera and the clothes on my back. My phone showed only 15% battery as I frantically called Jake's number. Straight to voicemail. I tried my parents next. Same result. Even Sophia, who might have shown a sliver of sympathy, let my call ring through to voicemail. My wallet contained exactly $27 and an almost maxed-out credit card with a $500 limit. I was truly alone. The reality of my situation began to sink in. This was not just another prank. This was abandonment in its cruelest form. My hands trembled as I sent a text to all three of them. "This is not funny. Please come back." No response. The gas station was small, just 4 pumps, and a modest convenience store with a sign that read, "Big Sky Stop and Shop." As panic threatened to overwhelm me, a voice cut through my thoughts. "You okay there, honey? You look like you've seen a ghost." The woman behind the counter had kind eyes and graying hair pulled into a loose ponytail. Her name tag read Lisa. I hesitated before approaching her. My family. They left me here. They drove off while I was sleeping. The words sounded pathetic, even to my own ears. Lisa's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "They, what now?" "Left you on purpose," I showed her Jake's text message. Her face hardened as she read it. "Well, that is about the meanest thing I have ever seen. Some family you got there. They think it is funny." I explained, my voice barely above a whisper. "They have always been like this." Lisa shook her head in disgust. "You need to call the police, honey. This is not right." The thought of police involvement made me pause. What would happen? My parents would be forced to come back for me, furious about the embarrassment I caused them. Life would be even more unbearable at home. Jake would make me pay for involving authorities. Something inside me broke and reformed in that moment. "I do not want to go back," I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. "I cannot live like that anymore." Lisa studied me for a long moment. "How old are you, son?" 23. She nodded. "Well, that is your right then. But you still need a plan. You got money. Somewhere to go." I shook my head, explaining my limited resources. Lisa sighed, then made an offer that would change everything. "Look, I need help around here. Previous assistant quit last week. Not glamorous work, but I can pay cash daily, and there is a storage room with a cot you can use till you figure things out. Beats sleeping outside." That was how I began my new life, stocking shelves and cleaning floors at a Montana gas station. Lisa was fair and kind, nothing like my family. She advanced me enough money to buy toiletries and a change of clothes from the small selection the store offered. My phone died completely that first night, and I discovered a strange sense of freedom in its silence. For 2 weeks, I worked from opening until closing, saving every dollar. Customers came and went, most barely noticing me. But one regular, a long-haul trucker named Marcus, always greeted me with respect. He was a mountain of a man with a full beard and arms covered in colorful tattoos. "You remind me of myself. At your age," he told me one evening as he paid for his coffee. "Got that same look. Like you are trying to figure out where you fit." Over several visits, Marcus shared his story. He had escaped an abusive home at 19, lived on the streets for a year, then found freedom on the open road. "Sometimes you gotta leave to find yourself," he said. "Family is not always blood. Sometimes it is the people who treat you like you matter." When Marcus mentioned he was heading to Seattle the following week, I found myself asking if I could ride along. "Got nothing keeping me here except Lisa's kindness," I admitted, "and she deserves to have that storage room back." Marcus agreed without hesitation. "West Coast will give you more opportunities than this place, especially for a photographer." He had noticed my camera, the way I carefully cleaned it each night, though I rarely used it. Lisa was supportive when I told her my plan. You got a good head on your shoulders, Chad. Just needed to get away from those vultures who raised you. Before I left, she helped me send one email from the store's ancient computer to my mother's address. I am safe. Do not look for me. This is my choice. No sentiment, no forgiveness, just information. The journey to Seattle with Marcus was transformative. For 3 days, we crossed mountains and valleys, stopping at diners and truck stops. He pointed out landscapes worth photographing, insisted I capture them. That eye of yours is a gift, he said when I showed him the results. Do not waste it because some fools told you it was worthless. In Seattle, Marcus introduced me to Frank, a former trucker, who now owned a small coffee shop near Pike Place Market. Frank needed help and offered me a job on Marcus's recommendation. Pay is not great, but there is a room upstairs you can use until you get on your feet, Frank explained. Marcus vouches for you that is good enough for me. Within days of settling in Seattle, I checked my email at the coffee shop's computer. There were 3 messages. One from Jake, full of mockery about how I must be begging strangers for bus fare. One from my mother demanding I stop this childish tantrum and call home immediately. And a brief note from my father threatening to cut me off completely if I did not return by the end of the month, as if I had anything left to lose. I deleted them all without responding and began my new life in earnest. 6 months passed quickly, in the rhythm of the coffee shop. I learned to make lattes with perfect foam, memorized regular customers' orders, and slowly built a modest savings account. Frank was gruff but fair, increasing my pay after I suggested changes that improved the shop's efficiency. The small room above the store became home decorated with my growing collection of Seattle photographs. Among our regular customers was Jessica, a freelance photographer who always ordered the same thing: black coffee, no room. She noticed me one afternoon as I adjusted the display of local art on our walls. "You have a good eye for composition," she commented. "Do you take pictures yourself?" I nodded, suddenly shy. "Amateur stuff mostly. Landscapes around the city. Show me sometime," she suggested before leaving. The next day, I nervously brought my camera to work. When Jessica arrived for her usual coffee, I hesitantly showed her my recent photos. She examined them with professional scrutiny. "These are not amateur," she declared. "You understand light in a way most photography school graduates do not." She looked up at me with genuine interest. "Why are you making coffee instead of taking pictures?" I gave her the abbreviated version of my story, leaving out the worst details. Jessica listened intently, then made an unexpected offer. "I have an old Nikon DSLR gathering dust since I upgraded. It is yours if you want it. Consider it an investment in your future." That camera changed everything. Jessica began teaching me technical skills I had never learned on my own. She explained exposure triangles and composition rules, then encouraged me to break those same rules with purpose. "Photography is both science and art," she explained. "You need to master the science to fully express the art." 3 months after meeting Jessica, she faced an emergency when her second shooter canceled before a wedding. "I know it is last minute," she said, appearing at the coffee shop in a panic, "but would you consider helping me today? Just basic shots. Nothing complicated. I will pay you." The wedding was at a small vineyard outside the city. My hands trembled as I adjusted settings, terrified of failing. But something magical happened once I started shooting. Everything Jessica had taught me clicked into place. I captured genuine moments between the couple, unscripted interactions between guests, details others might miss. "These are stunning," Jessica said later as we reviewed the images. "You have a rare talent for capturing emotion." She began recommending me to clients who could not afford her rates, allowing me to build a portfolio while earning extra income. A year after arriving in Seattle, I had saved enough to rent a small apartment and purchase proper equipment. Frank was sad to see me go, but proud of my progress. "You were always meant for more than serving coffee," he said on my last day. "Just do not forget us little people when you get famous." My relationship with Jessica evolved gradually from mentor and student to colleagues and friends. We began collaborating on projects, her technical perfection complementing my emotional approach. Eventually, our professional admiration blossomed into something deeper. Our first kiss happened in her darkroom while developing prints for an exhibition. "I have been waiting months for you to do that," she whispered. 2 years after being abandoned in Montana, I received another email from my family. This one was different, tinged with what seemed like genuine concern. Apparently, when I never returned or contacted them again, they had eventually filed a missing persons report. The police had verified I was alive based on my employment records, but would not disclose my location due to my request for privacy. My mother's message included phrases like, "worried sick," and "please just let us know you are okay." Jake had added a postscript claiming the whole thing had been just a joke that got out of hand. I showed the email to Jessica, who had by then heard the full story of my family's cruelty. "You do not owe them a response," she said, holding my hand. "But whatever you decide, I support you." After careful consideration, I chose silence. The family that had laughed at my abandonment did not deserve the closure of knowing I was not just surviving, but thriving. I blocked their email addresses and focused on building my future. My photography business grew steadily. I developed a specialty in capturing human emotion in everyday moments, a style Jessica called compassionate observation. Local galleries began featuring my work. A series documenting Seattle's homeless population earned critical acclaim and caught the attention of several magazines. Jessica and I moved in together, combining our talents to open a small studio, specializing in documentary-style wedding photography and editorial work. We complemented each other perfectly, her organizational skills balancing my creative impulses. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen and valued. I was no longer the family joke, but a respected artist and a loved partner. 10 years passed in what felt like the blink of an eye. The abandoned boy at the gas station was unrecognizable in the man I had become. Jessica and I married in a small ceremony on the beach, surrounded by friends who had become our chosen family. Our photography studio had expanded to a beautiful space in downtown Seattle, with 4 additional photographers on staff. My work had been featured in National Geographic and several major art publications. The email from Jake arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning. "I saw your photo spread in Art Focus magazine. We need to talk." My finger hovered over the delete button before curiosity won out. I read his message describing how our parents had aged, how they still asked about me on holidays, how Sophia had children I had never met. He closed with what seemed like a heartfelt apology, though the words rang hollow after 15 years of silence. "What will you do?" Jessica asked that night as we discussed the message over dinner. "Nothing," I replied. "That chapter of my life is closed." Life had other plans. 3 weeks later, as I reviewed portfolios from photography interns, our studio manager interrupted. "There are people here insisting on seeing you. They say they are your family." The world tilted as I walked into the reception area. My parents had aged dramatically, my father's once imposing frame now stooped, and thin, my mother's hair completely gray. Jake looked uncomfortable in his expensive suit, fidgeting like a child. Sophia stood slightly apart, cradling a sleeping toddler against her shoulder. They stared at me as though seeing a ghost. Chad, my mother, whispered, tears immediately streaming down her face. She moved to embrace me, but I stepped back. "How did you find me?" My voice was steady, revealing none of the turmoil beneath. Jake cleared his throat. "The magazine article had your studio address. We flew out this morning. 15 years, and you just show up unannounced." I kept my expression neutral, though my heart raced. "We looked for you," my father said, his voice lacking the authoritative tone I remembered. "For years. Private investigators, missing persons reports. We thought you were dead," Sophia added quietly. "Until Jake saw the magazine. It was supposed to be a joke," Jake said, unable to meet my eyes. "Just a stupid joke. We were coming back for you after an hour. But you never came," I replied evenly, "and I built a better life without you." The tension was broken by Jessica's arrival. "Everything okay in here?" she asked, sliding her hand into mine. "Jessica, meet my biological family. Family, this is my wife, Jessica." The word wife caused my mother to sob harder. "You are married?" Sophia asked, bouncing her fussing child. "We missed your wedding. You missed everything I confirmed without emotion. By choice." Jake pulled out his phone, showing me a screen full of calls to my long, disconnected number. 107 calls, Chad. I counted them. We came back for you. You were just gone. And you thought I would wait. After a lifetime of being your punching bag, I laughed without humor. You left me with nothing in the middle of nowhere. What did you expect? My father stepped forward, his eyes watery. We made a terrible mistake. The worst of our lives. We have been paying for it every day since. No, I corrected him. You have been experiencing consequences. There is a difference. I led them into our private gallery, where my most personal project hung on the walls. Lost and Found featured portraits of people who had been abandoned by family and found strength in their solitude. The final image was a self-portrait taken at the gas station where Lisa still worked. I had returned there 5 years earlier not to relive trauma, but to document healing. This is what your joke created, I said quietly. Not a victim, but an artist. Not a tragedy, but a transformation. My mother touched the frame of my self-portrait with trembling fingers. We were horrible to you. I see that now. You were, I agreed without malice. And leaving me was the best thing you ever did for me. It forced me to discover my worth outside of your judgment. Jake had been silently examining each photograph. You never answered our calls, he finally said. Never responded to emails. We had no way to apologize. I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots I had saved of his original message and the mocking email he sent after. These are not the words of someone who regrets a joke gone wrong. These are the words of someone who enjoyed causing pain. Jake's face crumbled. For the first time in my memory, my confident, arrogant brother began to cry. Not performative tears meant to manipulate, but deep body-shaking sobs of genuine remorse. I have thought about that text every day for 15 years, he managed between breaths. I would give anything to take it back. I do not want your anything, I replied calmly. I do not want your apologies or your regrets. I built this life without you, and I am proud of that. The door opened again, and Jessica entered with our 4-year-old son, Daniel. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but someone wanted to say goodnight to Daddy before bedtime. My family stared at the little boy with my eyes and Jessica's smile. You have a son, my mother whispered. I have a family, I corrected her. One built on love and respect, not obligation and cruelty. As Daniel ran to hug my legs, Jake wiped his face and asked the question I knew was coming. Can we ever be part of your life again? Even in some small way, I looked at my son then, at these strangers who shared my blood. I do not know. That depends on who you have become since I last knew you. People can change, but trust must be earned. I am willing to consider a conversation, but on my terms, not yours. It was the most generous offer I could honestly make. 2 years later, I allowed my parents and Sophia to attend Daniel's 6th birthday party. Jake remained on probation longer, our relationship the most damaged and the slowest to show any possibility of healing. My work, 107 missed calls, won the prestigious Leighton Photography Award, documenting my journey from abandonment to empowerment through a series of self-portraits taken over 15 years. The family that thought it would be funny to abandon me created the circumstances that made me the man I am today. Not through their love or support, but through their absence. Sometimes the greatest gift toxic people can give you is their departure from your life. I learned that family is not defined by blood, but by actions, by the people who show up consistently with love and respect. If my story resonates with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear that abandonment can become a doorway to freedom. Have you ever had to create boundaries with family members who hurt you? How did you rebuild your life? Let me know in the comments. If this journey of transformation spoke to you, please subscribe to hear more stories of resilience. Remember that your worth is not determined by those who fail to see it, but by the truth you discover when you finally see yourself clearly. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to build the life you deserve with or without those who share your blood.